An important snapshot of the country's economic growth was released today, a week and a half before the election. With positive but still slow improvement, the White House and the Romney campaign offered different assessments. A late boost in consumer spending was a major factor in the economic news from the Commerce Department. Gross domestic product, the broadest gauge of the country's economic health, grew at a 2% rate from July through September, slightly better than the 1.8% economists had predicted, and an improvement over the 1.3% growth in the previous quarter. Another positive sign today, a survey from the University of Michigan shows consumer confidence this month reached its highest level since September 2007, 3 months before the recession began. But the GDP growth is still considered by economists to be too weak to bring a quick uptick in jobs. And on the stump in Ames, Iowa today, Mitt Romney seized on that aspect of the new report.
Today we received, by the way, the latest round of discouraging economic news. Last quarter, our economy grew at just 2%. After the stimulus was passed, the White House promised that the economy would now be growing at 4.3%, over twice as fast. Slow economic growth means slow job growth and declining take-home pay. That's what 4 years of President Obama's policies have produced. Americans are ready for change, for growth, for jobs, for more take-home pay, and we're going to bring it to them.
After 2 days of intense campaigning, President Obama was off the trail today. He didn't directly address the new data in a radio interview, but pushed back on Romney's criticism.
The fact of the matter is that Governor Romney's economic policies are reverting back to the same policies that I inherited that led us to the slowest job growth in 50 years, record deficits, and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. What Governor Romney is offering is a return to policies that have failed us in the past. He's now talking about them as big changes. They're not big changes. They're a repeat, a relapse of things that haven't worked for American families for over a decade now.
With both sides promising to revitalize the economy, there's one more important report yet to come. The jobs numbers for October will be released next Friday, just 4 days before voters head to the polls. Earlier today, I talked about the new government economic report with Hugh Johnson, head of an investment and advisory firm in Albany, New York. Hugh, welcome. First, the good news. Where's the growth coming from?
Well, there are a lot of places, but I think probably the best news is that, consumer spending is about 70% of our economy. We saw that strengthen in the third quarter. That's very good news. I think there are a couple of really parts of that. First of all, residential real estate or housing. We know the numbers have been getting better when we look at housing starts or existing home sales. That showed up in the report as well. Residential real estate is improving, and that's, of course, helping consumer confidence and helping consumer spending. So I think those are the two bright spots. The big surprise in this report, in my view, was the increase in government spending. That was not at the state level, that was at the federal level. And that was primarily due to an increase in defense spending. I think that that was the biggest surprise, and a pleasant surprise.
But on the other hand, this is still very slow growth, right?
Yeah, that's true. When you compare it to the sort of the kind of growth rates you should see for the economy at this stage of a recovery, should be closer to 3%. We're at 2%.
It looks as though a new area of weakness was in exports. What's going on there?
Yeah, there was clearly a slowdown, a negative number on exports. That's primarily due to the fact that we're doing less business with China. The economy of China has slowed. The economy of Europe has slowed, and that showed up in the numbers.
Hugh, I'm not going to make you into a political analyst, but from where you sit, does it look like there's something here for both candidates?
Yeah, I think there is something there for both sides. I think on the one side, President Obama can certainly point to the fact that the economy did better in the third quarter than it did in the second quarter, and that we're sort of on the right trajectory or on the right pathway towards recovery. Things are getting a little bit better. At the same time, there's no question that Governor Romney could say, well, look, we might be headed in the right direction, but the truth is that economic growth is extraordinarily anemic when compared to other post-war recoveries, and not the kind of numbers or economic growth that we need to really make progress or to put a dent in the high unemployment rate and get some people back to work.
Hugh Johnson, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.